It is just about the holiday season, and all around the world, woodworkers are looking at pieces of scrap and thinking, how can I get a gift out of this that won't cost me any money? What most of us do is cut these up, stack them, take them over to the lathe, and make like a big bowl or something. And the only problem with that is that a lot of the people in your life don't actually want a big wooden bowl. So instead of doing that, take this piece of scrap just the way it is, take it over to the lathe and turn something like this, a plate or a platter. These are an easy, inexpensive product. You can do a lot of them quickly, and you're going to be going to holiday parties anyway. So turn a platter like this, put the food you're bringing onto it, take it to the party, and at the end of the evening, you can say to your host, oh, by the way, this is for you. Merry Christmas. I made this out of solid wood because I'm amazing. I'm just laying these out using a regular compass. I have it set to the diameter that I need, and I'm avoiding things like knots and other problems. And then once I have it figured out, I'm going to just define my center point with an awl like this. This will really help for mounting it on the lathe. I'm using maple for this project. It's 1 inch thick, but 3/4 would be just fine. Other good woods would be cherry and sycamore, anything with a dense, fine grain. Don't use a big open-grained wood like oak or ash. I'm just going to cut these circles out over on the bandsaw. If you don't have a bandsaw, go ahead and use a coping saw or a turning saw. They're just as good. You only have to get these pieces roughly round. You can true them up once they're on the lathe. Getting the workpiece mounted to the lathe is really simple. I've got my faceplate. I put blue tape on it, and then I trimmed it so it's clean all the way around, and then just a little bit of tape on the back of the piece. We'll put the faceplate on the lathe and tighten that down. To get the piece stuck to the faceplate, I'm just going to use CA glue. Put my workpiece right on there, and then bring up my tailstock. I marked the center, so if I just line up the center with the tailstock, I know this piece is perfectly centered. Lock that tailstock down, and then give it a little bit of tension. And that tailstock is going to work just like a clamp to hold this while the glue dries. Obviously, I could use accelerator if I did this, but then it would stick instantly, and I wouldn't have a chance to move it around and get it centered. This only has to dry for about 5 minutes, and it's ready to turn. Next thing is to get this rim cleaned up. It's very rough from the bandsaw, and we need it to turn true. So I've got a bowl gouge. This is a 3/8 inch narrow bowl gouge. It's the perfect tool. I can do almost the whole project with it. Any bowl gouge is fine. I'm going to turn the lathe up to about 750 and go back and forth on this rim until it's spinning true. Once the rim is nice and round, I can get rid of the tailstock. I won't need that anymore for the whole project. And now I'm going to do a little layout. I've got my square set to 3/4 of an inch, and I'll make a mark right there. Nice dark one that I can see. And I'll turn on the lathe at a nice low speed and run that mark all the way around. Now I know where my rim is going to be, and I know I want 4.5 inches flat across the bottom, and I can do anything I want in this area here. I'm going to start off by taking my bowl gouge and just hollowing out most of this material and getting most of the waste out of the piece. Here I'm just taking my bowl gouge, taking light cuts because this is dry hardwood, and I'm just trying to scoop out most of the material, get the bottom of it down to say something around 1/4 of an inch, and expose the rim so I can start thinking about details and how I want the finished piece to look. Tricky part with a project like this is you want the bottom to be thin and delicate, but obviously you don't want to break through. An easy way to tell how deep you've gone is just to put a flat stick over the rim like this, then take a ruler. When you put it against that stick, it bottoms out, and you can see how deep you are. I'm about 5/8 of an inch deep, and this is 1 inch stock. So I want to go a lot further. I want to get it down to at least 1/4 of an inch, or maybe a little bit less. You can make these pretty thin, and they still work really well. I've got most of the waste out of the core of this piece, and I'm down to the depth I want. In fact, right in the middle here, I'm down to maybe 1/8 of an inch. I have to be very careful not to go any deeper right here, but I should be fine. Now I want to talk about technique just for a minute. This is a lot like doing a miniature bowl, and it's actually good practice for a bowl. When I get started on the rim, I have my gouge like this, and I want to use the very point of it right here, right in that rim. And I'll swing the gouge out around pretty far like this, just to catch the rim with a very light cut, and then push forward. And I'm going to travel down the rim in that position right until I get to the bottom of the bowl. Then I'm going to slowly swing around as I make that transition in the corner. And as I move into the center of the bowl right here, I've got the bevel resting against the bottom, and I'm pushing the nose of the tool across the bottom right like that. And I can control how heavy a cut I'm taking by opening the flute, turning it out like this, or closing the flute, pulling it more in like this. And a lot of it's by feel, and there's some trial and error in this, but when you're using little scraps, it's okay if you make a mistake. It's pretty easy to just chuck up a new piece and start over again. Now I want to figure out the rim. I have a lot of material here, so I can do pretty much anything. I could do a flat rim like I have now. I could do a 45-degree slope. I could do something really shallow. I think what I'm going to do with this one is go for a very rounded look. So I'm going to round this corner over to a gentle transition down into the bowl, and then I'm going to match that over on this side. Then hopefully I'll come around behind and hollow that out. So the rim of the bowl is going to have this real graceful shape like a wave breaking. If it works out, it'll be great. And if it doesn't work out, I will do something else. It's okay. For this project to work, I need this rim to be nice and delicate. Right now it's chunky and totally hideous. I created a profile over here that goes over the lip and then leads smoothly down into the plate. And what I need to do is kind of copy that profile, but in reverse. So I'm going to turn this back corner here while watching the front and watching the profile develop here on top. This is the tricky part because I need a really thin, graceful rim in order for this to look actually like a plate, but I could also ruin the whole thing and shatter it if I'm not careful. So I'm going to take really slight, easy cuts and constantly check and recheck my profile as I slowly dial it in. Right now, this rim is getting delicate. It's almost exactly what I want, but I need one more cut right in through here. It's a little flat and the wall here is a little bit thick. And here's where I'm either going to get that nice delicate rim that I'm looking for, or the whole thing's going to explode. One or the other. My shape is mostly there. The plate is really delicate. You can hear it if I tap it. It sounds really thin because it is. And now I don't really want to use the bowl gouge too much anymore because I don't want to take material off too quickly. Now's a great time to switch to scrapers. And I'm only going to use two other tools for the whole rest of the project. I'm just going to use a round nose scraper, and I'll go a couple of light cuts across the bottom to level things out and get the finish really nice. This takes material off very slowly, so I don't have to worry too much about breaking through the bottom. And the shape of my rim is perfect. I can come right behind it with the scraper and refine it and take out any little ridges and tool marks. And then the last thing I'm going to use is this spear point scraper. And I generally think these are stupid tools and I almost never use them, except right for this little point right here where the wall transitions down to the bottom. The spear point is the perfect tool for getting in there and defining that and making it really nice and crisp. So I'll use these two tools on the bottom, up and over the rim, behind the rim, and then the spear point is going to come in and give me a crisp line between the edge and the bottom of the plate. The shape of this platter is exactly what I want it to be, and I got a pretty good finish off the scrapers, but this is dry hardwood, so you really shouldn't be afraid to sand it. That's going to bring it up to its best finish. I'm going to go with 100 grit, 120, 150 grit, and then I might go up to 220 or 360 grit. Really just have to see what I think this needs. And I'm going to use the sandpaper not just to get my surface, but to do that tiny last little bit of shaping. I've got a sharp edge on this rim. I'll knock that back with the sandpaper. I'll wrap it around my finger and get in behind this rim and just smooth that out a little bit and make sure the bottom here and the outside of the rim are free from tool marks. I'm going to take a while and sand. I'm going to sand in a couple different directions and sand with the machine off, just going back and forth with the grain by hand. All of these techniques are going to give me a nice finished surface. You can finish these projects right on the lathe, which makes them extra quick and easy. I usually start with some sort of oil, like boiled linseed oil. I spread on a thick coat with the lathe turned off, and then I switch the lathe on at a high speed, move that paper towel to a dry spot, build up some heat and friction, and get it to polymerize that oil right away so it's ready for the next step. And for me, that's going to be wipe-on polyurethane. And it's the same thing. I spread it on with the lathe turned off. Then I turn it on and use a dry section of paper towel to build up some heat and get the finish dry really quickly. Obviously, these are not particularly food-safe finishes. They're especially not food-safe until they've dried for at least 30 days. I'm not actually going to use these for food. I'm going to give them to my daughter, and she's going to use them for play tea parties. And she's 9, so she's not going to chew on them, so I'm not really worried about the food-safe part. If I were actually going to put food on these, I would finish them with mineral oil, beeswax, or shellac. Those are all easy, food-safe finishes that I've used before. Now, getting the project off the lathe can be tricky, and the most important thing is just to go slowly. All you need to do is take a putty knife or anything else thin and slide it down in between those layers of tape. You really need to resist the urge to pry or push the thing off the faceplate. That's where you're going to break it. Just keep slowly working your way around the faceplate, pushing that putty knife in a little bit deeper each time. It takes a little bit of patience, but when the tape separates, it comes right off, and the piece is perfect. It's in great shape. You can see on the back, there's a little unfinished part where the tape was. I'll rub a little finish on there by hand really quickly, and this piece will be done. If you're lucky, the finished product will look something like this. Lightweight, with a delicate rim, nice graceful curve. The whole thing it's almost weightless. It's like 1/8 of an inch thick, which is really fun. I made it out of this lovely flamed maple. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but the figure is beautiful. I think my daughter's going to really enjoy this. If I were going to take something like this to a party and fill it full of food or cookies or something, I wouldn't use a little one like this. I would make a larger one like this walnut platter I made last year. You could give these to just about anybody, and they would be really touched to get such a nice handmade gift. And they're a super quick, easy project. Now, the one downside is that not all of them are going to work out. This is the one that I was doing through most of this video, and you can see I lost it right at the last second. Remember just a couple minutes ago where I said the piece was too delicate for my gouge and I was going to stick to scrapers and sandpaper? I should have done that, and I didn't. I had a little bit of torn grain under the rim, and I couldn't quite reach it with my scraper, so I thought, oh, I'll get my gouge and just nip that off, and that was stupid, and I knew it was stupid, and the second I touched this thing with that gouge, it just exploded because it was way too delicate for an aggressive tool like that. It's okay. I can make one of these usually in about an hour, including finishing, so if you lose one once in a while, it's not a big deal. You can still make a bunch of these in a single day and give them out to all the special people in your life. It's basically a free project. Now, you might be watching this video and thinking, I'm not even wood turning yet. I don't even know how to get started. Well, I've got something to help. I wrote a book. It's called 1 Week to Wood Turning, and it's a complete guide to the equipment and getting set up. So I walk you through buying a lathe, setting it up, setting up your space for turning, getting your tools, sharpening, safety, finishing, and even finding wood. It's all in there. If you like Kindle books, you can grab it on Amazon in Kindle form, or if you'd rather have a PDF, it's at rexkrueger.com/store for a totally unrestricted PDF copy. And on top of the book, we are also having a plan sale. All of our plans are 50% off from now until Christmas. That includes workbenches, shop projects, furniture, and shop-made tools. We never have sales, just once a year, and this is by far the biggest one we ever have. 50% off everything, but only until Christmas. So go on over to rexkrueger.com/store and get yourself a little something. Patreon.com/rexkrueger. I could never make these videos without my patrons, and I appreciate them so much. And for all of you, thanks so much for watching. See you next time.